Hi, this is Kathi Quinn with Floriani. Floriani's a division of R&K Distributing, and I want to welcome you to this week's Project of the Week. Well, this week I want to talk a little bit about lettering. I had done some recipe cards as one of our projects, our hands-on projects, at our hands-on events. And I noticed that we had a lot of problems at the beginning of a line with the thread not catching. And I tried several things, and of course what I should have looked at very first is how the card was digitized. Now of course I digitized it in Floriani software, so I knew it had to be perfect. Well, sometimes you have to know what you're doing, so I want to explain what happened to me. The first thing I did is I wanted to put a recipe on a piece of cardstock. Now I love this because it's really nice when you can and do things and you tie the recipe to the top of a jar of your own preserves, or you give somebody the recipe with a bag of ingredients mixed up. They're nice gifts, they're personal, but the hand embroidered cardstock really sets it apart. Same thing with postcards. So the first thing I did is, of course, I'm going to come up to my artwork tools. Now remember, when we come up to our artwork, we're talking about vector artwork. Now I'm going to left mouse click on this, and I am going to select my rectangle with a left mouse click. Now notice there is a rectangle connected to my cursor, so I realize I am drawing a rectangle. But very important to note is when I start to do this, when I draw this rectangle, I'm holding down my left mouse key and dragging. Notice what happens in my properties box. Now in my properties box, it shows me what I'm working with. Kathi, you are working with just artwork. We do not have stitches as of yet. The first thing I want to do, of course, is I want to tell this artwork what size to be. I want to transform it. So I'm going to click on my Transform tab with a left mouse click. Now the cardstock I happen to have, its width is 6.5 and its height is 4.5. Now this is just a standard size cardstock you can buy at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, any of those places. But of course you can cut your cardstock for whatever size you want. Gift tags, the sky's the limit. With this set, I'm going to apply. Now I will fit this to screen, and you can see the outline of my card. Now I'm going to go ahead and come down to my one-click wonders, because since this is artwork, it's not going to stitch out. I'm going to come down here to my run stitch, and I have now made that a single run. Now all this is going to do is stitch on the cardstock to give me a placement line on my stabilizer to put my cardstock down. But here's where I ran into trouble. I decided to just very easily type in a recipe. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to my T for text and left mouse click on it, and I just wanted plain old straight text. Now I know that I'm doing straight text because there is an A stuck to my cursor. That is telling me, Kathi, you're working with text. So let's left mouse click on screen. Notice, of course, my properties box comes right up and tells me that I'm working with lettering. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to type in, I don't know, salsa. And I'm going to put 1 cup tomatoes. Uh, 10 jalapenos, etc. You get the idea. So I can type in my whole recipe. But let me show you something more wonderful than that. Let's erase this. Let's go into Word. Now you can go into Word, you can go into any program that you can type into. So I'm just going to come into Word as a blank document, and I could type all this in. And the good thing about this is I have spell check here. And believe me, sometimes I need it. And I'm just going to put in a few things here. Now what I can do is I can highlight this, right mouse copy, come back into my text box, and I'm just going to Control V to paste. So you can see everything I typed over here is now in here. The good news is of course over here I could have run spell check and made sure. I can see it spelled okay, but I could have run spell check if I had a long recipe. Now I'm going to come in here, and what I did is I went down to my line block. So I'm going to select line block, and I selected one that had lowercase letters. So if you look, here we go. You can see I have upper and lowercase with line small. Now I didn't need these to be so small, but I picked line small, and I'm going to make these about 1/4 of an inch tall. Now if I hover my cursor over here, it's telling me recommended sizes. Now I'm going to apply. Notice, it does not matter what font I used to create in Word. This box is now Boss. So now I'm going to apply. Now once I apply this in here, I can make it bigger. I can do whatever I need to do to fit this in. Okay, so you can see now I've got my lettering in here. And I was thrilled. Now I took it and I said, you know what? I want to align to the left. So I'm going to apply that because I want my recipe to line up down the left-hand side here. And so you can see it aligned left. Now when I stitched this out, I was having trouble at the beginning of every line with it not catching. It's not catching the knot. Well, I found out that in some of these smaller alphabets, they don't put a knot behind there intentionally. Because if you're using line alphabets, you might be doing something on a quilt label, and since it is a single line of stitching, it's not a satin stitching or a heavy letter, they don't want you to see that or feel that knot. So let's look at our tabs under here under text. I'm going to go to the words text extra, and I'm going to click on that. Now notice in here, I keep right mouse clicking to show you the drawing, and it brings up other options. There you go. Notice it's saying here, sew sequence I have left, trim type always, lock type never. Now I need to always lock. I want it to go ahead and tie off. So I do need it to do a lock stitch on this one. Now it doesn't do it by default. Most of our alphabets have a lock stitch by default. All of the nice satin stitch alphabets, all of those, but because these alphabets are specialty and they're very fine alphabets, we did not include a lock automatically in case you didn't want that look. In that case, you would hold on to the tail a little bit, let this start, let go of your tail, and then you would deal with your tails behind your embroidery or within your quilt. So now I say lock type always. When I apply this, now it is always going to lock. I'm telling it trim. Always when you trim, go ahead and trim between the letters. So I don't have to trim, but it's going to always go ahead and tie off that stitch. So make sure when you're doing some of these alphabets, when you're checking some of this fine stuff, always check your digitizing first before you decide it's something else. Now, if you've obviously got a tension problem or something, that is your machine, or you haven't got your bobbin wound correctly, you may not be threaded correctly, but when you have a consistent problem in a design, check the digitizing. A lot of times it's just operator error, and in my case, it was operator error. I called DJ, told him I was having all kinds of problems. Could he tell me what I could be doing wrong? He told me to go into text extras. So the minute I went to text extra, I saw where my problem was. We weren't tying off. So when you have some of these smaller alphabets, you have some of these line alphabets, if you need them to tie off, such as this recipe card, make sure to go into text extra and go ahead and tell it you need it to lock always. So we want to have those locks in there for our nice catching, and we won't have it pulling out. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I hope you learned a couple of things. I hope you got excited about being able to type into Word, spell check, copy and paste over into your program, and go ahead and then select your font and continue on with whatever your design is. So I look forward, of course, to seeing you again next week for the project of the week. Thank you for coming.